Worst audition I had, probably my very first audition for a graduate program. I opened my mouth and it all just left my brain, and I was just standing there going, I think that Willem Dafoe death scene in Platoon, yeah, that was the first one that was like, oh my God. And after that, I loved war movies. To be honest, Jordan works really in concert with the actors, so it wasn't a space of giving advice, more of creating a space where they felt comfortable and free. I think the biggest thing that I left that set with was feeling that I could kind of do anything in that space. The first day he said I would never say that we got a shot if we didn't get it. So you can trust that if I say we got it, that it's gold. It's so often now. The other day at a coffee shop, a young black woman just was like, like from across the room. Now that's really what happens. They do this, or they come up to me barking. That's always interesting, but I like it. It's good. Soul Plane. I love that movie so much. All the time. I think I've seen Soul Plane probably 15 to 20 times.